what is a mindset? Well, I guess that depends. To me, mindset, I don't believe mindset is a specific state of mind, but about identity. It's about culture, and it's about who we are. In fact, I think it's everything about us. How we grow up, our wins and losses, our failures and successes. It's about the moments that we lose our faith and the moments we recover it. And every feeling and emotion we experience makes us who we are every day. That's what we are. Our mindset is who we are. A lot of the time it's been a sense of failure. And some of the time it's been laughter. It's been so many things. It's been friendships that have lasted a lifetime. It's been relationships that burned passionately, then extinguished. It's about parents who made mistakes but loved with all they had. It's mistakes that I made with my own children who deserved better when my best wasn't enough. It's about moments when friends, it's about moments with friends when the world was loving and beautiful for a few moments. And it's also about hours of worrying about things I couldn't control. It's been learning to live in faith and learning to let go of the injustices that wounded me. It's been not understanding and still believing. It's been about memories of dinners with my mom and laughing with my dad, who have both passed on, and countless seemingly insignificant encounters that would go on to impact me in small and significant ways through my life. And I think that all makes up who I am in a mindset. Essentially change. I mean, there are parts of me in every word that I write in a mindset. I mean, they are meanings and stories and insights about who I am and how my mindset can in some way encourage you, give you hope. Because the ultimate goal is to help you live better so that you can share your mindsets with the rest of us through who you are becoming. It's probably easier to say, how do we know when our mindsets are right? When we feel secure and comfortable and safe, when life seems out of control, you're probably pretty close to where you need to be. Now, there's not a perfect mindset, but you're probably pretty close. But I can say this, if your mindset is not rooted in something greater than yourself, it's a mindset based only based on you. And that's dangerous, and it's doomed to fail because it's built on a foundation of pride, and those never remain standing. I mean, even pagan societies had the sense to believe in gods and not completely within themselves. I know of 3 actions that undoubtedly make us better, that make our mindsets better, that make us better. Forgiveness, kindness, and humility. And if your mindset does not encompass all of these, there is no way to obtain peace. And without peace, there is no way that your mindset is correct. Mindsets are important because, as I said earlier, they are who we are. And when they are right, they allow us to learn and to be how we should be. Let me tell you a story about a man whose complete mindset changed. And I think it's important to note in this story that when our mindsets are skewed, even God steps in to help us correct that mindset. When I was a news reporter, and I had I got this call, and this lady called me, and I was in my office, and she said, "Hey, there's something strange here." She said, "There's a guy with these 2 mules. He's kind of holding up traffic," and this is in a rural county. Sometimes they have what they call 1-lane bridges. He was going across this old country bridge, and I guess this woman called me, and she thought it might be interesting. So I went down there, jumped in my car, and I didn't even take anything to write with. I just thought, ooh, it's an opportunity. And I jumped down there, I run in my car. When I get to this bridge, this guy is he's leaning up against a tree. He's sitting up against a tree, and he's eating something, out of a can. The mules are over there, and they're kind of eating on the grass, kind of milling about the side of the road. I introduced myself, and I said, "This is sort of a strange, thing. Well, can you tell me, what's going on here?" He started telling me this story about how he was living somewhere down in South Texas, and he had this job. He worked in some sort of factory. So he's living with this woman. They're sharing this house together. Starts telling me that, he said, I got laid off that day. And he said, I come home. He said, I realize when I get there that her car's not there. And I walk in the house and there's all the furniture's gone. Everything. She took everything. And he said, I was just stunned. He said, so I went out on my porch, on the porch there, and he said, this was a rented house. And he said, so I went out there and I sat there for a few minutes. And he said, I was raised in church, but I wasn't what you would call a practicing Christian. And he said, but I sat there on the porch and I thought, what do I do? What do I do? And so I was sort of staring off in the summertime, and I was sort of staring off in the distance, and I'm asking God, what do I do? And this voice came and it said, trust me. So he didn't really know what that meant at the moment, but later that evening he started getting these thoughts of things he should do, and so thought, it's time to go home. And he lived in, I think, Michigan, and so I think it's where he was from. So God tells him, I will help you, but you have to do everything that I tell you to do. You have to blindly trust me. And so the next morning, he goes into town and he sells the car. He's got this old clunker, I guess, or whatever, and he sells it. And he buys these mules. He goes back and he comes back home and he packs up his clothes and what he's got, a few possessions that he has left. And so he's telling me this, and he said God told him, you cannot ask anyone for help. No one. You have to you have to trust that I will provide. He said, I had a little pup tent, and I had what I had, and he said, I took the money that I had and I bought as much canned food and crackers or whatever I could, and he said, I headed off. And he said, it's a slow journey. It's just, sometimes the mules don't move, and they certainly don't move quickly. So, and he's just telling me about all these things that happened and how all of these people stopped and helped him. And he never asked, and how they stopped to some people would offer to stop and wash his clothes, take him to a laundromat or take him home. Some people even invited him back and let him take a shower and fed him dinner. People brought him groceries, stop and bring him stuff. And he said, for the first time in my life, I truly began to realize what it meant to completely trust. Because he said it was really frightening for me knowing that I was afraid to ask anyone, because I was afraid if I did, it would break the deal we had, or whatever it was that he had with God at that moment. And so, but he said after a while I began to realize I didn't need to feel that, because everything was taken care of. Now he also added, he's like, there were times when, he said it wasn't easy. He said there were nights I went without something to eat, and there were nights that it rained and stormed, and anyway, and I'd get wet. And he said there's times the mules wouldn't move, and he said I've had a lot of hardships. And he was only in Oklahoma at this point. He still had a long way to go. But he said everything I really needed has been provided for me, and I haven't had to ask once. That story made a huge impact on me. Not necessarily at that time, but as I thought about it, and years later, was during hard times for me and different things, I would think about that and what that story meant. It completely changed his mindset from someone that didn't even really have a relationship with God to someone that completely relied and trusted every day on him, that he would provide what he needed just to survive. When I said earlier about what a mindset is, it's who we are. At that point in the journey, he was someone different than he was on the day he started it. So every day our mindsets evolve and they grow, but every day it's who we are. And he could have chosen to been angry and been ungrateful, but he chose to see the fact that God had provided just as he said he would. I hope that story helps people, as it's helped me, to understand the importance of our mindsets every day, because it matters. It really matters. It's who we are.